You're listening to WJHS 91.5, The Eagle. Welcome to Media in the Making, a podcast where we look at the evolution of media from 1600 all the way to present day 2020. In this podcast series, you will learn how the different forms of media have changed culture. Media in the Making, where media and culture are always changing. Now, let's take a step back in time. The commercial use of the radio is arguably one of the most impactful influences of culture. It has made an immense amount of change and is still evolving to this day. Britannica.com tells us that the first voice in music heard over radio waves was in 1906 from Brant Rock, Massachusetts. This lasted for about half an hour. By 1908, a man named Charles Harold started to schedule music and talk programs, and since they were cheap and easy to obtain, they caught on very fast. However, they were notoriously difficult to tune to the correct frequencies. A radio broadcasting service by the name of PCGG rolled out from the Netherlands and is often credited as one of the world's first radio scheduled broadcasts. However, it wasn't until the late 20s that the radios were popular enough for broadcasters to announce solid schedules. Surely enough, though, around twice a week, broadcasters would roll out their programs for about half an hour at a time. This was very convenient for all audiences because they finally knew when their favorite shows were happening. Similarly to today's radio stations, the struggle of keeping people entertained and engaged with their program was very prevalent. Most broadcasters quickly caught on that hearing a person's voice, whether that be through a talk show or music, was what most people wanted to be hearing. According to TechWholesale.com, there was only one frequency to run a show off of, and it was very obvious that just one was not enough for all of the people wanting to broadcast. So, in 1922, the American public was granted two more frequencies to broadcast from. Even with these three, it was still somewhat chaotic to broadcast. The government had almost no laws regarding which centers could go live, so overlap was a very big problem. With this in mind, two more frequencies were granted in 1923. This helped but far from solve the growing problem, especially since 550 new stations appeared in America alone in 1922. AT&T introduced adverts to the radio in early 20s. Before that point, most stations generally agreed that bringing ads into radio would kill it altogether. But in 1922, AT&T got licensed by the government to run a 15-minute ad for an apartment complex in the Queens. So thanks to them, ads started going to most radio stations. And even to this day, they still played radio stations all around the world. It took until the early 30s for people to start giving their devotion to radio shows. People started to bend their schedules around their favorite shows. This was one of the first pieces of media that has ever been able to get people to make such a drastic change in their schedules like that. It also managed to unify people in the same sense. People talked about the shows they liked and disliked, and some would spend time hanging out with each other to listen to the radio. The radio is undoubtedly an incredible influential piece of media. One of the reasons it's so influential is because it was one of the first extremely fast ways to get information to a very broad audience in such a fast way. It united people all across the nation and even the world using such a new and exciting form of entertainment that everyone could enjoy. That was Media in the Making, brought to you by WJHS 91.5 and the Eagle Tech Academy Mass Media classes. Media in the Making aims to teach you about the evolution of media throughout history and its effects on culture. For more from the students, this podcast series will be on the 91.5 website, wjhs.org. Thank you for tuning in.